A lot of people in the audience. Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you for coming. And this is the first committee meeting of the operations for the new year. And sorry for not starting promptly, but if I have to blame somebody, I'm going to blame the elevator. It took forever. It really took forever. And I noticed the guy that was going up the stairs, he really made it up faster than me. And so it's the elevator's fault. So with that, we're going to call the meeting to order. Maria Elisa?
Ms. Gutierrez?
I'm here.
Mr. Pago?
Here.
Mr. Meyer? Mr. Rodriguez-Pina? Mr. Vasquez? Chair Martinez?
Here.
Vice Chair Fano? Also joining us are Mr. Cancio? Ms. Weinberg?
Here.
And I think that's it besides the committee.
Very good. And with that, we go to council.
Here also. There you go. It's good to see everybody here. We're only missing two for a full board. Do any members on this committee or any members who are here today have any conflicts that you want to report on the agenda? You can, Marty, Mr. White item, is it?
Okay, it was item A.
Item A?
Yes.
4A or 5A? 4A, okay. For the record, Mr. Cancio has a conflict with item 4A. I don't see any more. We can move forward.
Very good. With that, we open up for public comments. Are there anyone that would like to speak before us? Please have they fill out the paperwork if any paperwork is due. Very good. Appear before us. State your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Pedro Munilla. Happy New Year.
New Year.
I would ask if it's possible to, we're here to address a recommendation to order break on a project that we are actually been found not responsive. I would appreciate if we could address our comments at the time that the matter is being addressed instead of at the public comments hearing. Is that possible?
It's an entire committee meeting regarding everything that's on the agenda. So I don't know, council. You tell me the guidelines.
Well, the guidelines say that a public hearing item, you would do it when that. But I think the deference would be up to the person running the meeting.
We could do it at a later time.
Thank you very much.
Item.
I appreciate it. Okay. Can we have one person leave the comment?
Yeah, if they want to.
Ms. McNeil, she's taking a flight.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ann McNeil, president and owner of MCO Construction. The address is 6600 Northwest 27th Avenue, Miami, Florida, 33147.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak during the public comments. I am celebrating 40 years in the construction industry. And as a result of that, we have had the opportunity to work with MDX and a number of other county agencies for a number of years. And we have been certified with a number of agencies for that period of time. The project that is in question with MCM, I have been listed, my firm was listed as one of the reasons that they were deemed non-responsive. And I have all of the documents that show that we were responsive, and I know I can't really talk to Helen, but I just would like to have some kind of dialogue or something relative to that, because I spent the last couple of days at the Small Business Office, and they will confirm that we are responsive. So as far as that particular item in their proposal, we're responsive. And if there's something else I need to do or another item that relates to me and my company, I would just like to find that out so I can address that also.
Okay, I think Helen can respond, no?
Okay.
I am, and actually you could talk to me.
Okay.
The certification that's became effective after the submittal of the bid package. That's the concern. So they did call me. I did speak to them. I did speak to them before I put the recommendation forth. So I do understand the distinction, but unfortunately, the effectiveness of your certification became effective after the submittal of the bid.
Okay, and in regards to that, they also had conversations with you in terms of other situations with MDX and with this office where that has been dealt with in terms of it's not a non-responsive issue in accordance with what the director is saying.
I'll answer that, just, because I know she has to go. But what the county did speak to me about is that they have recently submitted a memo within their organization,
Correct.
where they're changing their positions because of some issues that are going on between the small business department and the procurement department. But that doesn't necessarily apply to MDX, and those are not MDX's issues, for lack of a better term. So they are going through some issues in the county that are not relative to MDX. Which they are addressing in their agency separate than MDX. And, what level of detail you would like us to get into at this forum is a different...
Okay. All right, well, I would just like to respectfully leave, at the end of the day, when all of this is said and done regarding the award and how you choose, if MCO is found to be a reason that they're not responsive, I would like respectfully to have the opportunity to have the director of the department and the staff to address the issue, because I did exactly what they suggested I do before this recommendation. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Would you like to say something?
No. Just for clarity, the director of the
Small Business Office. Yes, sir. Thank you. All right.
You want to leave any copies that you're referring to? Because I see you referring to something. Ma'am?
Ann.
Referring to something like some documents that you had in your hand. Did you want to drop off copy or something?
No. What I'd like to do is, based upon whatever you decide to do, if my firm is deemed one of the reasons why they're not responsive, then what I'd like to do respectfully is get with Helen and the Small Business Office, because before now because of Kona silence, could not have communication with her.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. But there was a question from one of our...
I wanted to ask her a question before she left, because you're not going to be around later, and I understand
Correct.
You have a flight to take.
Yes, thank you.
But do you agree with her first comment about the fact that at the time of the bid that you were not qualified? Because I believe that's what I heard. Do you agree with that?
No, let's be very clear. The item that we're discussing is petroleum, fuel. South Florida Water Management District, EAA Reservoir. We had a $10 million contract with Parsons and their firm to provide fuel. So we've had that designation for years. And you can go on the Florida website for DBE, scroll down, and you will see that information there. What she's referring to is for Dade County, we added that after we added the code. We added that code, that SIC. See, we've always been certified in all of the categories, small business, DBE, all of those. The next code that she's referring to was added after the bid, a few days, a week, or whatever after the bid. That's what she's referring to. Their office is saying that is not a reason in their office for noncompliance. And that's what they're saying to me, that they will address.
Let me just turn to Helen real quick. Can you please address that?
Our solicitations are policy. Remember that we're not the county.
No,
we don't
I
follow the
understand,
county
yes.
procedures and
Right.
policies. We have our own small business policy.
Right.
Our policy requires that you be certified under the code, the trade category for which you're going to be providing the services under the small business program.
Right.
Unfortunately, at the time of the bid, that code, that trade category, you were not certified under the small business program. You work for DBE, but we are not accepting DBE certifications. It's a small business certifications. So that's where the distinction is. Remember that we do accept those certifications, but we do have our own policy that guides how we utilize those certifications. And I think that that's a distinction between whatever the county may be doing and what the MDX is doing.
Okay, I'm very clear about that, and I do have the SBE and also the SBEC and SBES and micro and local. So
just to answer my question, yes or no, do you disagree with what she said?
regarding the timing?
Disagree, yes.
No, I'm not disagreeing with what she's saying about the timing.
I just needed to know
Yes.
before you left because I might have had the question later.
No, I'm
All
not
right.
disagreeing with what she's saying about the timing.
Okay.
And I respectfully understand her point in terms of when it's convenient to use the county's program, understanding MDX has their own program and their own rules. But for those of us who are small business, then we get caught in between a rock and a hard place because MDX is using the county's program, but you have your own rules, and we have to abide by both. And I think that might be an opportunity for education and growth on all of our parts. So then we understand which supersedes which.
MDX.
Okay?
Thank you.
Very much.
Have a safe flight. I didn't want to
thank you.
delay.
My
Thank you.
apologies.
Thanks
My
for coming
apologies.
by.
Thank you.
Ma'am, before you leave, and I apologize. I know you're in a hurry, and I don't want you to miss your flight.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
You indicated that, and Helen, you can clarify this date. When did you put in your application for this certification that was, because from what I understand your presentation, you did obtain this needed certification, but after the bid was submitted, or am I confused? And I apologize. I'm just trying to clarify it
Let
in
me
my head.
explain. It's not a certification.
I apologize. Thank you.
We are certified
Correct.
in every category.
Okay.
It is a next code for petroleum that was added, and that's where the fine line is coming. The next code for the fuel, which we've always had with other agencies, and that's why I mentioned South Florida Water Management District.
Okay.
So it was added.
And when did you apply to add it, is what I'm asking. And if you don't know, it's okay.
It had to be in December, and the bid was
Okay.
in November.
And I guess my other question is, why did you decide to add it? Was it someone told you needed it, or
No.
just wanted to follow? I'm just
We've
curious.
always done the fuel.
Okay.
We have it with other agencies.
Okay.
And when we decided to bid this, because again, remember, the county allows this. So if this
Yes,
was just Dade County, what MDX is saying is a non-issue, and that's what the county is saying.
And
So-
I don't disagree with that. Okay.
Okay.
And from what you're saying, and no one's disputing that the county has
Okay.
a different system, but it's similar to if you're in state or federal court, the rules sometimes are slightly different.
Understood.
So
Understood.
I'm just trying to clarify. In December is when you put in for this Nexus code you needed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the bid was with us. The bidding was closed in November, I believe. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay. And my question is, why did you go get the code? Is it because of the bid here, or was it because you just part of your business procedure? That's what I'm trying to. If you know, if you don't know, it's okay.
No, when we realized that the county, we had to have that added, we would just assume that it would, because we have it with the state.
I understand.
We just assumed that it was added. And I came by and just made sure that we had every single thing we need. So we would not be standing here today, but nevertheless.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
No.
for speaking before
And thank
us.
you for
I appreciate
your-
it.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Ms. Chair,
Thank you.
for time.
Is there anyone else that would like to appear before us during the public comment? Yes. Also, make sure you state your name. Remember, the Munilla is that you are going to address your item before the item. You have what, 3? 5? Don't tell me the number. We're going to go and see how fast we can do this meeting. Let's go.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mauricio Gonzalez, Director of Construction for Oliver's Construction, Inc., located at 201 Alhambra Circle, Coral Gables, Florida 33134. And we would like to ask from the committee to be able to address as well comments that may be made regarding 83629 at a later time.
Yeah, you're one of the submitters in one of the items. That's fine.
Thank you.
That's fine. All right. No more public comments? We close that item and we move on to the action items. Council.
This is Section 4, real property action items. Approval to execute lease of MDX parcel 11205-169.
Madam Chair, we have Jason Green, who is our property manager, who's ready to discuss the issue at hand.
Good afternoon. What we have before you is a motion to approve the execution of a lease for MDX parcel 11205-169. The land is located at 3804 Northwest 28th Street. It is approximately 3.45 acres. We put it out for bid after board approval in early December. Bids were received in early January. A market rental appraisal was done, estimating annual rent at approximately $312,000 per year. We had 5 bid packages were emailed, 12 were downloaded, so we did have a number of interested parties. Only 3 parties ended up bidding. The winning bid came in at $330,000, which is over the market rental appraisal. $330,000 per year by Aratoka LLC, located at 1320 South Dixie Highway, Coral Gables, for the storage of automobiles. The other bids were submitted by SF Property Investment Group LLC at 12599 Northwest 107th Avenue, Medley, Florida, in the amount of only $101,000. This was for concrete-related business operations. And Par N LLC at 1100 South Miami Avenue, in the amount of $60,000, also for the storage of automobiles. The lease term will be for 10 base years with a number of one-year renewal options. It includes a CPI annual escalation rate.
Is there, hold on, I was going to open. Is there a motion to approve? Is second?
Yeah.
Okay, the item is now open for discussion.
I was talking to Helen, so I apologize. I missed a bit. You have 3 proposals.
There were 3 bidders.
330,000. I got one.
330, 101, and 60,000.
In that order. Okay.
That order.
Thank you.
Okay.
It should come in over the 10-year lease with CPI around $3.5 million in revenue.
Any other questions from the board members? And they have to maintain liability insurance?
Yes,
like
there's
any
full
other?
general liability, workers' compensation insurance, all of our standard insurance requirements, indemnifications, environmental is all on our standard leases.
I don't see why there is a hesitation here. Is there any other questions from any board member? Okay. And with that, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone would like to be recorded as a no? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think you should go too far because the next 2 items might have to do with you too.
No.
No? All right, Juan, I was trying to...
Item 5, operations actions items. Item A, approval of summary minutes, operations committee meeting of September 22nd, 2015.
It feels like so long ago.
It does.
Like really years away. All those in favor?
Motion. Move it. Motion. Yeah. Move. Approved. Yeah. All right.
All those in favor? All right. You got it. Anyone against? All right.
Madam Chair, with your permission, we could do B and C together. We've done it in the past, so I'll read them both into the record.
Perfect.
And then Mr. Toledo will explain. MDX Work Program number 83611, State Road 836 I-95 interchange improvements, endorsement of eminent domain parcel resolution 1601 through 1612. MDX Work Program number 836, State Road 836 operational capacity interchange improvements, endorsement of eminent domain parcels 16-13 through 16-19.
Okay.
Good afternoon, board members. Similar to other items that we've been bringing related to the parcel acquisitions on the 3 projects that we're currently working on, 83628, the capacity improvement project, 874, 10, the southwest extension of 874, and the 83611, which is the 836 with I-95. These are parcel resolutions. We're taking the next step now for parcel acquisition. So with these parcel resolutions, we can now proceed with negotiations with the owners. If those were to fail, then we go to eminent domain. But these resolutions need to be in place for us to move forward.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Okay. The item is open for discussion. Any questions? This is clear, which means you start the process of negotiating, and if you don't, you can proceed with eminent domain.
Correct.
Very good. No questions?
Madam Chair, quick question.
Last call.
Yep. One, any challenges, any pushback from the community, from these people that are negotiating, any concerns that, that you've had along the way, challenges that as a board we should be aware of? Are people feeling that they're being treated fairly? And, I know discussions and negotiations are always difficult, so I'm trying to avoid any surprises later on.
I think overall, where we've made the most progress so far is on 874, on that corridor where we need to buy right away. We've already closed on a handful of parcels. We're still negotiating a few, and we do have a couple that already started the eminent domain process because we just can't come to terms with the owner. On the 836, on this corridor specifically, we're still in the negotiation process. We're just fine-tuning some of the negotiations. What I can do is at the next meeting is provide a summary of where we're at with all the projects and the parcels that we're currently negotiating and where we are with eminent domain.
Madam Chair, follow-up question. So you said one of them in particular, the negotiations kind of failed, and the eminent domain process. I didn't hear you very well.
We already filed eminent domain suit on one or two. On 3 parcels on the 874 corridor. So we already began that because we couldn't agree to terms with the owner on those specific properties. I can provide a summary of that at the next meeting, or through Javier, through Mr. Rodriguez, I can send it to the board members to let you know where we are, to show you a bigger picture of where we are with right-of-way on those 3 projects.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Any comments from staff?
No, the only thing I'd like to say is that as far as the process for 836, the 2 projects on 836 before you, we're on schedule moving forward. And on 836-11 specifically, which is the partnership with FDOT, we're on schedule to have all the property acquired at the time of award. So we're well underway there.
A lot of construction. Okay, there are 2 items that we're going to be voting on together. So there's a motion and a second. Everybody understands it's B and C together? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Items carried.
Item D, MDX procurement contract number RFQ 16-1. Miscellaneous materials engineering testing service, $300,000 contract. Approval to cancel the procurement process. Approval to re-advertise the service as MDX procurement contract RFQ 16-4.
Helen.
Thank you, ma'am. The 2 requested actions are, first of all, the approval to cancel the procurement process for MDX procurement contract number RFQ 1606. We put out a request for qualifications for a pool of 3 firms to provide materials testing, materials engineering and testing services. We received 7 proposals in response to the RFQ from AMEC Foster Wheeler Environment and Infrastructure, Construction Testing and Inspection, GFA International Inc., Professional Services Industry, Tally Engineering, Sierra South Florida, and Universal Engineering Services. Upon performing compliance review of the proposals, all proposals were deemed responsive, pending consideration of a minor irregularity for one of the proposers. We went ahead and held the Technical Evaluation Committee meeting, and during the Technical Evaluation Committee, as part of the committee discussion, one of the evaluators made comments in reference to one of the proposers that we would later discover were incorrect comments. Unfortunately, those comments may have influenced the scoring of that evaluator himself as well as the other evaluators present. Therefore, in order to maintain the fairness of the process and to keep a transparent, competitive process, we're asking to cancel the procurement. Now, because there was a pending consideration for minor irregularity to come before this committee, the scores were not totaled. They were sealed and kept in the safe, so no one knows what the final results of those evaluations are. Because staff was considering making this recommendation to re-advertise the services, the proposals are also have been kept from the public review, so the competitive edge for these proposals have not been impacted by the process thus far. So the first action item is to cancel the procurement in order to remedy the comments that were made at the evaluation committee. The second item is to then reprocure, and what we're proposing is to reprocure in a different manner, in where we we pre-qualified a pool of contract firms or consultants, I should say, without necessarily a limited number of pre-qualified firms, and we issue work on an as-needed basis. So instead of going through an evaluation process, we would just pre-qualify them, make sure they have minimum requirements, and if they meet those requirements, they would come into the pool, and then work would be issued as needed. We're asking that each contract that of this pre-qualified pool would be not to exceed $300,000, and it would be for a term of 3 years.
Okay, I'm going to, is there a motion?
Move.
Is there a second? Okay, the item is now open for discussion, but first, welcome Maurice Ferre. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
May I, Madam Chair, ask Mr. Ferre if he has any conflicts with any items on the agenda?
I have none.
Okay.
Okay. It's open. Item is open for discussion.
Madam Chair, as the technical evaluation oversight member, on the board member oversight on this particular procurement, I have had some time to speak with staff about this and the recommendation, and I did challenge staff particularly about not re-procuring this because we're going to end up in the same place of creating a pool. But after, again, speaking with our general counsel, Helen and Javier, I think that we're forced, if we will, for in an effort to maintain our integrity and any perceptions and any conflicts, that we do support this recommendation at this point. And I question and I challenge it, but I just want to put that for the record for our fellow board members that I did spend a good amount of time, and having been in that room as well when the presentations were being made, I feel that we should support this, the recommendation of staff. But I wasn't there originally. That's really the point that I want to share with you all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unlike Board Member Rodriguez-Pena, I don't know if I spent as much time as you did on this matter, but I did spend a considerable amount of time reviewing it, speaking with staff, and actually listening to the audio from the process to get a better idea of what had occurred and where we stand moving forward. I do also agree and feel confident in moving past this and accepting staff's recommendation on the first portion to cancel the procurement. However, I do have a few questions with respect to the subsequent process of pre-qualified pool. And so I have three specific questions. The first is, what are our expected costs for material testing to be distributed to this pool over the course of 3 years, because we do have the $300,000 limit for 3 years. Second is the process of selection of pre-qualified firms to go to contract. Is that done through the executive director or his or her designee? And then how many will be pre-qualified? So those are my three questions with respect to that subsequent process.
To the first question, I believe that we have somewhere a little bit under $1 million overall budgeted for the projects in terms of material testing. The tasks that we'll be assigning aren't large in nature. That's why we're capping the contract, or we're saying that the upper limiting amount is 300, because that'll allow us to distribute that workload evenly amongst a pool of 5 or more. And we went back. I looked at it with staff, and there is a way that we can distribute that work logistically amongst a larger pool as opposed to 3, and still get benefit out of it. But we're looking at somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million in overall services over the life of the contract is what we'd be distributing.
The other questions were whether the pre-qualification, how it will be done. It will be done through the procurement department. We will go through compliance, responsiveness review like we do with every process. And if they meet those minimum pre-qualifications criteria, they would come into the pool. And the number would be based on the number of proposals that we receive and how many of those meet those minimum qualifications. If all of them do, then everyone comes in. If one of them doesn't, then we'll bring them here for this committee to make a decision on responsiveness.
So my comment to that, just for the record, is I think we need to look at capping that pool.
just because we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where there's 20 material testing companies. Not that there would be, but that could potentially occur. And then how do you distribute? And then from a workload and manpower situation, and then not contracting folks in the pre-qualification pool, very similar to a continuing services contract. And so I would just look, and I look forward to my fellow board members and their reaction to actually capping that pre-qualification pool, whether that be 5 or 7 or 3 for that matter.
We're good. Any other questions? You have any comments?
No. From staff perspective, that's fine. We'll I guess I was looking at one to see if there was a number based on the workload that he felt made more sense.
I mean, we looked at that, and I think that based on the firms that are out there that do this type of service, I think that we're probably going to end up getting. I would assume we're going to get the same people that submitted now, and maybe a couple more. I think the only difference is that the companies that may not have submitted now is because of years of experience. They felt they may not have significant experience to have competed at a level where you have other companies that are doing longer. Those are areas that they felt maybe that won't give them a competitive edge. I think by opening it up to other firms that didn't submit and don't have the sufficient, because you have young companies that are out there that may not have the 2, 3, 5 years of experience. But this is an opportunity for them to gain that experience working with the authority and not having to go through an evaluation process. And we know that we can distribute the workload accordingly. So that was the frame of thought originally of not capping, because we don't feel that there's a large pool of companies that would do it. We're maybe looking at 2 or 3 more that may submit a pre-qualification package.
Okay, but I have a question. How does the experience not play a role in this?
Well, experience does play a role in the current process because you're evaluating it against other firms. What we're saying now is because you're pre-qualifying the firm on qualifications, you might have a startup company that has professionals that have been doing this for a while, but it's just a company that they just opened up a new company. But that the number of years of experience of the company don't compete to the same level.
That's what I needed.
So this gives them an opportunity.
That's what I needed. I needed clarification that you were talking about experience of the company, yes, not necessarily the people that will be working on it. That's what I wanted to make sure that I was hearing. But I do agree with Member Meyer that we do need to come out with a number. And perhaps there are 7 that applied, and there could be 10 that apply. Maybe 5 is a good magic number. Okay? That way everybody knows what they're getting into. If the contract is $3 million and it's shared and it's a rotation, you know what you're walking into. I mean, nobody likes to go into a bid not knowing what you're going to get. It's a surprise. You want to get some gravy.
Madam Chair, if I may, I would echo those sentiments. I think as a business person, you want to know if it's worth going after it, and if it's, $3 million divided by 6 or $3 million divided by 5, is it worth your time? And I think concur. I think it's a great point that Mr. Meyer brings up, that I think we should have a defined pool that then allows people to determine whether the feasibility of going through the process, not knowing whether if it's 7 or 5. So I concur.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, any other questions, any concern?
No, we just need a number, a cap number.
So I'm just going to say 5 unless the board thinks another number would be better. What do you think, Mr. Secretary? Go ahead and share it.
Certainly understand, the intent of the staff to do it like this, but it's basically what you're doing is providing a push-button service for engineering services, is how I would interpret it. And so, why limit the pool? The only issue becomes how do you differentiate between all the firms? Each firm will have different prices, for performing the same service. And, while it's a professional services contract, it's not about the price, it's about the quality of the work and the expertise. So typically you would do a pool of, 1. and they would get the contract, okay? And then, that's how we do it at the department, is one. And then we have multiple contracts instead of multiple firms in one contract. So it's just a different way of procuring it. And, but I understand the risk-reward of a pursuit. So, you may want to take that into consideration somehow in the future.
Make a very valid point. Yes.
I'm not on the committee, but I would like to ask a question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the executive director if he concurs with Gus Pago's position.
Mr. Pago talks about push button. We've done push button back at the Department of Transportation. We actually did this in the real estate side.
Is that a yes?
It's a yes. Yes. But there's a concern there, Board Member Ferre and Secretary Pago, is they all have different pricing, but they also all have different expertise where they try to do different types of works. And I think what the professional staff at MDX can do is look at everybody who's pre-qualified. They say they can do everything, but there's expertise in different areas. We can assign the task authorizations based on what they're good at and what they've performed well on. It's a qualifications and quality based decision that we would be making. So that's the only.
So the follow-up question then is, why would you want to limit yourself to 5 if there's 7? Since you're the one choosing, doesn't that give you more choice?
Board Member Ferre, our recommendation was no cap. Our recommendation on the agenda item report is that there's no cap. The discussion is based on a comment that's made by a board member, and it's being entertained.
I understand. Okay, so your recommendation is as it states in the. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, something to take into consideration in the discussion is that if we do cap the number of firms in the pool, then we would have to evaluate. Because how do you cap the number if you're just pre-qualifying them? So that would change the entire procurement process, which it's fine if that's the wishes of the committee, but I just wanted to put that on the table to be part of the discussion.
So say it again.
So if we limit the pool, the number of our firms that belong to get selected into the pool, then we would have to go through a evaluation process, because then it won't be just pre-qualifying, and we need to then evaluate them and rank them to then get to the number of.
Vice Chair of the committee, Gus Pago speaking. Did that answer the question?
If I could ask a follow-up to Helen's comment. Understanding that would be the process, from a timing perspective, does that allow us enough time to go out, re-procure in an evaluation criteria process, to pre-qualify and assign?
Yes.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Are you recommending that we re-procure this whole thing? Throw this out and re-procure?
There's 2. That's the recommendation. 2, right.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
And there's a very substantial reason why to go in and re-procure. And I wanted to say something for the record. That technical advisor, that person is not going to be invited again to the next bid?
No.
Or
At least not
they're
for
going to
this
get
one.
some time out
At least
like
not for this
5-year-olds
one.
do? Just wondered if we're going to do that. So we don't go again through the exercise?
Right.
I don't know who it was, but I don't want to know who it was. So if I stepped on anybody's toes, too bad. Be careful. High heels today. Yes. All right. So we're going to take the first action item, which is to accept, to throw out the bids and start over, right?
Yeah, cancel the procurement first and then.
Procurement. So first item, cancel the procurement. You move it? Who's second? Second over there. All those in favor? Aye. Against? It passes unanimously. Second item. Are we to re-advertise in the new process with no cap, or do we still feel that there should be a cap because it would change the recommendation from staff? That's a question. Didn't make a statement yet. That's a question.
Madam Chair.
There are very valuable points in this case. There's a benefit of quantity. There's also a benefit in one.
You know, I think, again, I feel certain responsibility to comment on this because I was involved in this oversight. This is, again, a case that I'm going to defer to staff, and I feel, in addition, even though I said something contrary earlier, I feel in addition to Mr. Pagel's comments, I think that I'm going to defer to staff's recommendation, and then if anything needs to be done along the way, I think Helen should report back to us. But we are in the mode that we need to get this out in an expeditious manner. But so just to go first, if you will, on this discussion, that's kind of where my recommendation.
No more than $1 million.
Council, would you like to? No?
No, I think everything is done in order.
To the record, the way we're going to vote on this item.
So we're going to vote just as it's written.
As is written.
The motion is to approve to re-advertise the service as MDX procurement contract 16-04.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Nay.
Item carries. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for all the expertise advice.
Item E, MDX procurement contract number ITB 16-02, extension of the MDX access control system. Approval to deem non-responsive all bid packages and cancel the procurement process.
Right. Who comes up and speaks?
Go ahead.
Helen.
Thank you. The requested action is to approval to deem non-responsive to the requirements of the ITV all bid packages submitted to and cancel the procurement process. We put out an ITV soliciting firms to provide security assistance for the expansion of the access control system in the MDX buildings. We received 3 proposals or 3 bids in response to the invitation to bid. Upon compliance and responsiveness review, all 3 of the bidders were non-responsive for various reasons, not meeting, some of them are not meeting the required years of experience, condition in the proposals, et cetera. So staff is recommending that all 3 of the bidders be deemed non-responsive. At this point, we're not asking to reprocure as staff is re-evaluating what would be the best way to move forward with this work.
Oye, are you still using the same magnifying glass, or did you get a new one? It's
no,
not
but
foggy.
I've been offered to get it replaced.
Get it replaced? Damn, it's not foggy yet. This is harsh. All right. They all screwed up.
I'll move it.
Is there a second? All right. There's a motion and a second. Any questions?
Is the magnifying glass a part of this vote? Just want to clarify. Missed that.
No. The magnifying glasses, she looks at them, she checks it, she does her work. Any questions from the board?
Yeah.
Yes.
If I may, Ms. Chair.
Absolutely, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Ms. Cordero,
Yes, sir.
let's start with the fact that I believe there are 2 different. Well, the first part of this is whether. That's not the. Oh, we're not the round responsible one?
We're not there yet.
Sorry, I apologize. No question on this one.
Yeah.
Sorry. As usual, I need to wear my glasses more often.
Made a New Year's resolution. I'll let you know after the meeting what it was.
You're going to wear glasses?
I'm buying glasses as well, yes. But I made a different one, and I'll share with it after.
I apologize, hon.
That's impossible. I can't hit a curveball.
For the record,
but I can hit a fastball.
Mr.
Still
Rodriguez
have a question
pitched,
on this item?
No, but I just want to make a comment since you brought up baseball. Mr. Rodriguez pitched in a baseball game on Sunday against Oil Can Boyd and beat Mr. Boyd, a former Major League Baseball player, 7-1.
Yeah, but ask him how his body feels today.
He couldn't move his arm for 2 days.
Sitting sideways because it hurts.
Boys will be boys.
The only thing that shares is that we're both old, so nothing else.
All right. Any questions on this item? It's out of the ballpark. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Here we go.
All right. Item F, MDX procurement contract number ITB 16-01. MDX work program number A3629.060. construction services for State Road 836 Exchange, modifications at 87th Avenue, $65,759,276. Approval to deem non-responsive the bid package submitted by 3 bidders, and endorsement for board approval of contract award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
Madam Chair, how would you like to handle this? Would you like staff to...
Just like any other bid, staff needs to present it, and then we go from there.
No, the reason I ask is because the public has asked to speak on the item, so it'll be
I have
after.
it written.
Okay.
I didn't get temporary amnesia from
No.
last year to this year. Don't worry, I got it written down. Mr. Timeout, you can come forward and tell us, just speak up and tell us about this item.
Actually, Helen is going to be introducing this item.
You're still in timeout.
I'll stay in my corner.
All righty then. This item includes 2 action items. The first one is the approval to deem non-responsive to the requirements of the ITB. The bid package is submitted by 3 of the bidders. And the second requested action is the endorsement for board approval of contract award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. MDX released an invitation to bid to provide construction services for State Road 836 interchange modifications at 87th Avenue. 8 bid packages were received from Astali Construction Corporation, Community Asphalt, Condote America, Fascina Construction, Halley Engineering Contractors, Munilla Construction Management, Autobrek Construction, and Prince Contracting. This ITB was released as an A+B bidding, which takes into consideration the price for the completion of the work as well as the proposed contract time. Based on that combination of and the formula, your agenda item report, Exhibit A has what the preliminary bid openings results were. And it leaves us with the top 5, based on those preliminary results. The top 5 bidders were Munilla Construction, Autobrek Construction, Astaldi Construction, Halley Engineering Contractors, and Condote America. We, in doing compliance review, we only took into consideration the top 5 bidders because the remainder 3, which were Community Asphalt, Fascina Construction, and Prince Contracting, their prices were extremely higher than our engineer's estimate, within the 30s and 40% in excess of our engineer's estimate. So we went ahead and did compliance review on the top 5 bidders, as well as review their proposed contract time and their schedules. Upon compliance review, 3 of the proposers did not meet a pre-qualification criteria related to being pre-qualified under 2 of the Florida Administrative Code for intelligent transportation system. That was a pre-qualification requirement that was needed to be in place at the time of bid package submittal. 3 proposers, Astali, Condote, and MCM, did not meet that requirement. So that renders them non-responsive to the requirements of the ITV. In addition, the MCM proposal also, as you heard earlier today, there was a component as it relates to the small business requirement, that one of the subcontractors that was proposed to meet that requirement was not pre-qualified as required by the ITV at the time of bid submittal. For those reasons, staff is recommending that those 3 proposers, or those 3 bidders, Astaldi, Condote, and MCM, be deemed non-responsive to the requirements of the RFP, leaving out of the 5 that were being considered Autobrek and Halley Construction as responsive bidders. We also asked our GECs to do a bid analysis and a contract time and schedule review of those 5 bidders. They found that although the contract times were very aggressive, that they could be accomplished with the right resources, and that was the same opinion or results of the review for all bidders. Therefore, the recommendation by staff is that we deem that the approval to deem non-responsive the bids from Astaldi, Condote, and MCM, and that endorse to the board the contract award to the lowest and responsible bidder, which in this case is Autobrek Construction, in the amount of $65,993,466.17, and for a contract time of 106 calendar days. Now, we did, full disclosure, at the same time that this agenda package was released to the committee, we also notified the bidders of staff's recommendation at today's meeting. MCM did submit a letter today in response to our recommendation, where they obviously disagree with our recommendation, and they've asked that we distribute this letter. It should be part of your packages today. Having read this letter and evaluated the points that they brought up, staff's recommendation remains the same.
I'm confused.
So, in order for me to open this particular item, I need to call the item. Sorry, turned it off. I need to call the item. Is there a motion?
Second.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Okay, now the item is open for discussion. We all heard the introduction of this particular item. Are there any questions from the board to Helen? Yes.
No, we did have an opportunity to review it, and it did not make, it didn't change staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Any other questions to staff?
Madam Chair, I do have questions, but I'd like to hear from the public speakers first and then ask some questions of staff after I hear the position of those who are placing their wish to speak to us, if that's acceptable to the chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Fine. I just wanted to make sure that we understood what was being told to us.
Yes.
All right. With that, I open the public comment section. Remember that this particular section, by our policy, we have like 3 minutes for each individual. So you have 3 minutes. The timekeeper will be Maria Luisa. And just, please just come forward and speak to us. State your name.
Thank you very much again for the opportunity. My name is Pedro Munilla, reside at 7277 Sunset Drive.
Yeah, we don't hear.
This is the second time we come to you protesting a recommendation to order break. On both bids, MCM would have been the recommended bidder, but for procurement department's findings to the contrary. The procurement department deemed MCM's bid to be non-responsive for 2 reasons. MCM used an SPE subcontractor that was not certified to its assigned scope, and MCM did not list a subcontractor who had its ITS certification. We submit that we can fully explain this. These are hyper-technical issues, fully explainable and waivable as done in the past, so long as deemed in the best interest of MDX, which is what my presentation will focus on. Unfortunately, these issues were never pointed out to us. We've had only 1 working day to prepare for this. Most respectfully, we find this unfair and contrary to the MDX norm. We should mention the procurement department had some concerns with our schedule and requested clarification back 2 months ago. 2 months ago, the department knew or should have known of these issues, so we can't understand why it did not provide us an opportunity to present our side on these issues as it did with the schedule, and waited until 1 day before the hearing for this to come out. We remain optimistic you will write this and recommend the award to MCM. We have this morning delivered our response. We ask that you read the response prior to making a decision. We are fully prepared to address the issues of the ITS certification today. They'll be addressed shortly. You heard MCO's President Ann McNeil present her side. I'd just like to clarify something. Under the certification that she went under, she was issued that in 2012, way back in 2012. Before we listed her, we asked her if that was, if for the aspects that we were listing her, if that was approved by the Dade County list. She went to Dade County, she confirmed, and that's what we used her for those issues. Suffice it to say that in the past, MDX has resolved similar issues via communications with the contractor and the small business department. I will address why it is in the best interest to recommend an award to MCM. MCM's bid offers to complete the project 221 days, that's over 7 months sooner than order break. MCM's time-adjusted price for this project is almost $3.7 million lower than order break, and most important, 7 months of less aggravation for our toll payers, taxpayers, and traveling public. And most respectfully, it is in the best interest of MDX to award to MCM as it has provided you with the best value, committing to complete the project over 7 months earlier than staff's present recommended bidder. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Murphy. I am the Director of Civil Operations for MCM, and my address is 6201 Southwest 70th Street in Miami. Basically, a recommendation of award on 83629 to MCM is in the best interest of MDX for the following reasons. MCM has completed many projects with much greater ITS scope than was required on this project. The I-95 express lanes, the HEFT AET conversion from Homestead to Bird Road, among others. The ITS work on this project is a minor element consisting of less than 1.6% of the work. MCM proposal expedites the construction work 221 calendar days sooner than Odebrecht, and based on a time bid calculation is $3.664 million better value than Odebrecht. The procurement department retained the consultant firms of EAC and HNTB to review the bids, and this is what they had to say. EAC, after conducting a thorough review, EAC found nothing that it felt would be considered sufficient cause for rejection of any of the bidders' proposals. HNTB, the aggressive schedules submitted by the firms are consistent with MDX's desire to deliver its project in the shortest amount of time possible in order to reduce the inconvenience to the public and deliver the project's benefits sooner. It is the conclusion of HNTB that, based on the established process for this solicitation, Munilla Construction Management, LLC, doing business as MCM, was the highest ranked bidder and the lowest bid total. I would like to point out a few more specifics of the engineer's analysis in their reports. In particular, HNTB notes that MCM has calculated or has proposed a 6-day work week. With that, there are 501 work days of the 580-day schedule. HNTB also notes that Odebrecht is an 806 calendar day proposal, of which they're working a 5-day work week, which means that Odebrecht is only working 575 days of the 806 days that they are going to occupy the right-of-way. This is a much greater impact proposed than what MCM is proposing. Another analysis done by HNTB is regarding resources. HNTB identified the value of work per day, per work day that the contractors would have to perform. And in our case, MCM was evaluated $135,000 per day value of work to be performed and needed the resources to do that. Odebrecht, with a slower schedule, was calculated at $115,000 per day required. However, they are concurrently working the 83628 project, which, using the same analysis, which is also referenced in the HNTB report, the rate would be $198,000 plus $115,000, yielding a requirement to put enough resources on the job, totaling $303,000 per day. And based on that, I think the best recommendation for the best interest of MDX would be to award this project to MCM. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Bruce McDonald, Civil Operations Manager for MCM and a concerned toll preparer. I'd like to give a few comments on this issue as well. This clerical mistake was based on MCM's long history of bidding civil works for both MDX and FDOT on projects of similar scope and size that do not require the listing of specialty contractors unless they are performing 50% of the project value. The ITS component on this project is relatively minor at only 1.6% of the contract value. On 83628, this documentation was not required, and even though the ITS scope had a value of 2.3% of the contract value. I'd also like to point out that of the 5 bidders examined by MDX, only 2 of the 5 submitted an ITS qualification, clearly showing the lack of clarity and expectation of the need for this qualification. These other contractors, Astaldi and Condote, are extremely experienced in submission of bid packages and yet fail to submit this superfluous documentation. The failure to submit this documentation in no way provided MCM an advantage or benefit. MCM utilized Ion Electric, a very large and competent electrical contractor, to perform this scope of work on the day of bid, and will contract with Ion for this scope. I would like to point out several items within the invitation to bid that allow this minor irregularity to be waived. Per Article 9 of the invitation to bid, MCM confirmed that it will comply with all conditions of the solicitation documents by submission of its bid package. Article 9.22 specifically states the bidder agrees that any portion of the administration package that is not submitted in the bid package and or have been submitted improperly shall not relieve the bidder from the intended requirement or submission of the properly completed documentation. Article 9.3 specifically excludes any requirement that the bidder demonstrate compliance with electrical work certification, which is inclusive of ITS. The contractor or its subcontractor shall be pre-qualified and demonstrate such at the time of work prior to the commencement of any work under the NAICS code 238210, which is electrical contractors and other wiring installation contractors. Note, bidders are not required to demonstrate compliance with the above classes of work in Section 9.3 at the time of bid package submittal, except as may be required for small business and local business participation requirements. I believe it would be in MDX's best interest to waive this irregularity and award the project to MCM. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Danny Mooney. I'm a Dade County resident and a toll payer and very concerned with this situation. I'm a general counsel for MCM. I focus my practice on construction law and public procurements. Before I get into the minor irregularity, I wanted to stress with respect to what MCO presentation that the underlying purposes of MDX's small business participation policy is to promote that Miami-Dade County economy by ensuring utilization of small businesses. Moreover, the policy shall be construed liberally and applied to promote its underlying purposes and parties. And respectfully, I don't think that they're being applied that way with respect to MCO's utilization. Separately, pursuant to Florida law, a bid submitting the lowest responsive and responsible bid is entitled to be awarded the contract. The key issue in the instant matter is whether the two hyper-technical bases for disqualification provided by MDX amount to minor irregularities or deviations that can be weighed, or are material deviations that renders MCM's bid non-responsive. In application of these general principles, sometimes it is said that a bid may be rejected or disregarded if there is a material variance between the bid and the advertisement. A minor variance, however, will not invalidate the bid. Because there is a very strong public policy in favor of awarding public contracts to the low bidder and an equally strong public policy against disqualifying the low bidder for technical deficiencies which do not confer an economic advantage to the bidder, and the deficiencies raised by MDX are hyper-technical and non-material. In this instance, MDX can and should, in its discretion, allow MCM to cure same. As a matter of fact, MDX failure to allow MCM to cure these hyper-technical deficiencies would be arbitrary because it has allowed other bidders to cure these issues in the past, and such refusal would be contrary to strong public policy against disqualifying the low bidder for technical deficiencies which do not confer an economic advantage to the bidder. Separate and apart, MDX has not vetted whether Odebrecht complies with its department and public entity crimes policy. Considering that the Wall Street Journal published an article in December which states that Mr. Odebrecht was arrested and charged with money laundering, corruption, and organized crime, and that Brazil's government has halted new business with Odebrecht, and since Odebrecht USA is part of the Odebrecht Group, we believe MDX must thoroughly vet whether Odebrecht is barred from bidding with MDX. I'd also like to stress that there's no rush in you guys making a decision today, and you guys have an opportunity to vet this. The engineer's estimate for this job was 1,457 days. Odebrecht's bid is 500 days faster than that. MCM's bid is even faster than that. Accordingly, there's no reason for you guys to rush to judgment today. I implore you to read what we've submitted, give us an opportunity to show you all the other minor irregularities such as ours that you guys have waived in the past, and I suggest that you guys waive these as you guys have done in your common practice. I thank you very much for the time to speak to you.
Good afternoon, Board. It's a pleasure being here.
I'm going to be very brief. You've heard a lot of information. My name is Juan Munilla. I live at 6030 Southwest 114th Street, Miami, Florida. This is very brief. You've heard a lot of information here. We obviously feel that this is an insignificant matter. It has been corrected by MDX with us and with others on multiple occasions. And I'm reading from the recommendation by staff, and it reads, these non-compliance matters are substantial. If they are pre-qualification requirements, and allowing a remedy for these omissions would provide the bidder a competitive advantage that is impermissible under either the MDX procurement policy or the law. This is simply not correct. MDX has done this before, and this would have nothing to do with the law. There's nothing unlawful about ensuring that the rights of this board can be to waive inconsistencies in bids. And I just felt that when I read this, I was wondering why of such significance. Understand it's 1.58% of the contract. That is insignificant. And that is it. And obviously I implore you to consider our position and spread the work of MDX, which is also very important. It just doesn't seem right that on two different occasions the same contractor is being awarded under some circumstances that might be incorrect. Thank you.
If I may just add one tiny thing. The package that you have, and that's what we recommend that you read it, provides the email prior to the date of bid from ION, which is a subcontractor for the ITS, including its certification, including all the requirements that should have been to comply with, for perfect compliance, which we consider superfluous, but would have been there, meaning that it was simply a clerical error. It was one of those things we're not used to doing it, so we didn't. The clerk did not include it as part of the submission. But the reality is no one was hurt, no one is getting an advantage of it, and that's why we respectfully request that you read our submission before making a decision. Thank you very much.
Your name for the record, right?
Pedro Munilla. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak on this item? I believe there was a Mauricio. Don't remember the name.
My name for the record, again, Mauricio Gonzalez, address 201 Alhambra Circle, Coral Gables, Florida 33134. I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present on the 83629 project. I would also like the opportunity that we have to perform for MDX on the 83628 project, a project that's going well, it's going as planned, it's going on schedule. Regarding the 83629 project, and in agreement with the recommendation by staff and by the MDX consultants, Oliver's has submitted a bid proposal that meets all the rules. Simply put, there were two contractors, and we were one of them, that followed the rules. There's a reason there are rules in the procurement process, and we complied with those rules. I'd like to clarify as well that on our schedule, Oliver's is working 6 days a week on the critical path. A simple review of our schedule, and as acknowledged by the consultants that reviewed it, would tell you that Oliver's is working 6 days a week. MCM's bid proposal does not meet the requirements of the procurement process. They do not meet the rules, and there's a reason that there are rules. Simply put, Oliver's USA won this competition fair and square. We believe we are the lowest responsive bidder, and we concur with the staff's recommendation and with the consultant's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else would like to speak on this item?
Yes, ma'am. Just one moment. I had a document to pass out to the commission, to the committee, if I might, please.
Sure. Here, we'll get it. And so don't keep us in suspense. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jim Moy. I'm with Moy O'Brien. It's good to see you again. 4075 Scarlet Iris Place, Winter Park, Florida. As you know, I dedicate our practice to construction procurement, and I must reemphasize what Mr. Gonzalez said. If we do not have procurement rules, we will have chaos. And this is not a simple violation of a procurement rule. I would like to direct you to the first page of this. This is the bid tab in the left-hand column of the standard bids. As you can see, Odebrecht is $2 million lower than MCM on the standard bid. But what I wanted to point out to you was the second page of this attachment. The second page of this attachment, down at the bottom where you have an asterisk, it tells you pre-qualification criteria. Bid packages shall not be considered. That's your words in the ITP. Bid packages shall not be considered from bidders that do not satisfy a minimum requirement. Bidders shall include the required information in order to demonstrate compliance. Let's go to the next page. At the top of the next page, it is the bidder's sole responsibility to submit a complete bid package that demonstrates compliance with the pre-qualification criteria in order to be deemed responsive. You have then listed here the items of pre-qualification. There are two that I would point your attention to. Intelligent transportation systems, which might be a small percentage of the work, but is critical to your performance. The one above it is roadway signing. It is undisputed in this record that MCM did not submit a subcontractor certification that met either one of those. It's not just the ITC, it's the roadway signage. Why is that important? Because of bid shopping. If they don't list the person that they are going to use in their bid documents, after they're the low bidder, they can bid shop. That's one reason. That's why they have a competitive advantage. But those are only two significant problems, because there's two more if you turn to the next page. The next page is the subcontractor listing form of MCM. You see that in the small business firm section, MCO Construction, they're listed at $1.4 million of the $10 million of small business firm. They were not certified in fuel at the time of this award. Why is that important to be certified at that time? Because Odebrecht and the other bidders couldn't use her price because they wouldn't use someone who wasn't certified in that scope of work. This is significant because it drops in significantly below the 15%. Look at the next item, MCO Constructions in the local business, $500,000. Again, dropping them below the 15% if it's not considered. But lastly, I'd ask you to see these circles I've made on this form. See these two? They're supposed to fill those out. Look at the next page. The next page is Odebrecht's submission. This is how you fill out a bid form. You fill out an entire bid form. Their disregard of your procurement process is blatant. They didn't put anything under the remaining team members. Why? Because if they list other subcontractors, they can't go out and bid shop. That's the competitive advantage. That's why you have rules, and without them it's chaos. And with all due respect, for a lawyer to stand up here and say that it is not your sole discretion and absolute discretion as to whether to waive your requirements is not correct and is not in accordance with your own instructions. And we would encourage you to award this project to Odebrecht. Thank you for your time.
This is coming before us. So we're at 7.
Hi, good afternoon, Board. Alexis Leal with MCM, 6201 Southwest 70th Street. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Moya's representation, especially of bid shopping. The documents do not require those things to be listed, and I will read one thing out of the ITB that is very important for your consideration. It's real simple, 19.4. Waivers, MDX at its sole and absolute discretion reserves a right to waive minor informalities or irregularities in the bid package or in the submittals received as part of the bid package where such is merely a matter of form and not substance, and the correction or waiver of which is not prejudice to other bidders. Minor irregularities are defined as those that will not have an adverse effect on MDX interest and will not materially affect the bid by giving a bidder an unfair advantage or benefit not enjoyed by the other bidders. And I will remind you that You guys have in the past taken that into account strongly, and you have ruled in that favor before. Thank you for your time.
And with that, this section is now closed, and we move forward with this particular item. Oh, I'm sorry. I should ask one more time. Anyone else would like to speak on this item? If there's no rebuttal, no anything, this is the time. You were hiding out there in the back.
I was hiding from you.
You were hiding from me? Oh, you're in plain view, so be careful.
There you go. Ignacio Halley Engineering Contractors. I heard a few interesting things. Obviously, we're the second responsible bidder according to staff's recommendation. First and foremost, I'm a businessman, I'll say, I think the criminal activities of the responsive bidder declared by by MDX should be considered number one. As far as I sit there, and I've been in the contracting business for too long to see that.
He said it all wrong. He's talking about someone else.
Okay, whatever.
He just said it all wrong.
All right, but the bottom line is, at the end of the day, I've been in this business too long to see such a big contract not be awarded to somebody for an irregularity. I'm in the game, and what is missing from the contract, the Department of Transportation doesn't require those type of things. If the contractor, one of the key things, MDX asked for the contractors to clarify their schedule because it was a big thing. That they could be thrown out because their schedule was not correct or the schedule could not be done. And in the industry, that was out there. Can they actually do the work by that schedule? Okay? And they could have been thrown out because of the schedule. Staff's recommendation and the consultant's recommendations comes back and says everybody's schedule could be done as long as you provide the resources. If they were going to be disqualified because a little impropriety stuff as the ITS, I think it was MDX's responsibility to contact the contractors and just make that clarification. Because it's not easy to bid MDX projects. The amount of paperwork that's required to put together who you're going to use, so on and so forth, is extremely burdensome. And to miss a 1.2% of the contract of a requirement that can very easily be taken care of. And I'll bring it back to a job where I was up against MCM, where they were given the opportunity to clarify one of those requirements. If one of the people that they had submitted as an engineer qualified, well, they actually were going to be found non-responsive. But they were given the opportunity to clarify it, and they clarified it, got put back into the process, and the low responsible bidder got awarded the project. For such a minor irregularity, and not to give the contractor the opportunity to say, hey, here it is. For bid shopping, that's a weak argument. Because at the end of the day, the contractor could change any of their subcontractors as long as it's approved by MDX. So MDX has to approve all subcontractors on every job. And they have if MDX sees bid shopping, that gets taken at. So I asked the board to rule based on the circumstances of what the bid numbers came out to, which was MCM. And I'm a competitor. I mean, I see a long shot of getting this job that if the board finds that there's criminal activity within Odebrecht, I'm the low bidder. But I'd hate to get a job this way because I think the intent of the bid is that MCM is low bidder. Thank you.
Okay, this is the last call. Is anybody else that wants to speak after this gentleman, please go ahead and raise your hand because after that I am closing the public comment. So, is there anyone else that's going to speak? Okay, no one else. So, yeah, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is James Moy, in-house counsel, Odebrecht Construction. We're at 201 Alhambra Circle.
And in full disclosure, I wanted to come enlighten you as to why the second responsive bidder, Haley Construction, is making the claims that they are. They are a major subcontractor in MCM's bid, as well as submitting their own bid, which is what it is if that's allowed, but they are a major subcontractor that stands to benefit from this. And I just wanted you to have full disclosure as to why the second responsive bidder was advocating that position. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Heard no one else wanted to comment. I want to comment. Public comment is now closed. We move forward. Okay. I'm going to give it to Helen. You want to walk us through what were your recommendations again, and the reason why, because we've heard a lot of statements being said, and they're calling this item minor irregularities. No reason. We've done it before, and this is not a competitive advantage. But from all the documentation before us, I do see the RFP. In reading this item, I read that it says, it is the bidder's sole responsibility to submit a complete bid package that demonstrates compliance with the pre-qualification criteria in order to be deemed responsive. And then the items in question are the ones that follow that particular statement and everything else. So I'm trying to figure out, does not fall under minor irregularities, and this is a compliance issue of the bid itself. So
the reason why it's before this committee for consideration is because it's not considered a minor irregularity. And I'll give you a perfect distinction. In the MCM proposal, they did not submit proof that they have a member of their team to be pre-qualified for roadway signing, which was also pre-qualification along with the ITS pre-qualification. We were able to identify one of their members. Looking in the FDOT pre-qualification website, we were able to identify that they did have a member in their team that had that pre-qualification. That's why that's not before you as a non-compliance, because that is a minor irregularity. We're waiving the fact that they didn't submit a form, but we're not waiving the fact that they have to have someone in their team to have the pre-qualification. Different than the ITS, where they not only did not submit someone, they didn't have anyone in their team, or they did not only not submit a form, but they didn't have anyone in their team who has that pre-qualification. So that's the distinction as to what is the minor irregularity versus what is a substantial or material irregularity, non-compliance issue. They also mentioned that this was that we've done this in the past. We have waived minor irregularities, absolutely, and we've had plenty of discussions in this committee about minor irregularities, but it goes back to material versus non-material, and it goes back to form versus substance. Form is not submitting an actual form, but having that requirement within your bid and not having it at all, which is the case here. They also mentioned some of the recommendations and opinions that were put forth by the GECs in the review of the schedules. Please remember, because they read a lot of verbatim, but they took everything out of context. Some of the stuff that was put together, and you do have the memos that were put together by the two separate GECs. Yes, they did say that the schedules were doable with the right resources, but they were just evaluating the contract time and the schedule. They were not evaluating the responsiveness and compliance of the bid package. So those comments were very specific to the schedule itself, not everything else that was part of the bid package and the requirements of the ITV. They also mentioned that this is not consistent with what we have done in the past. I would argue that, and I can single out projects where we have done it in the past, but I would also say that independent of what we've done in the past, independent of what FDOT does, we had a solicitation document that clearly outlined what the requirements for this particular bid were, and those were the requirements that needed to be complied with, which they obviously did not. They also mentioned that it was that the ITS work is minor to this project. It is in this discretion to determine what is important to us in a particular project. And on a per-project basis, that it's going to change depending on what the work is, what the parameters of the project is, what's going on with the agency in the particular project. In this particular one, we determined that the ITS was something we needed at the time of bid for X amount of reasons, which Juan can get more into the technical aspect of it.
As Helen stated, we set the prequals on a per project basis. As it relates to this project at 83629, we felt that the ATS component had a risk measure that you can't quantify, because part of this project, you are relocating a significant amount of our fiber backbone, which all the data, all our financial, all our revenue runs through that fiber. And again, this is a design, bid, build conventional project that you're building it per the plans. In a design build project, you have time to vet that through the design and so at that in the 83628, we didn't require that at that time because we're going to go through a coordination process through the design to be able to mitigate those risks. In this particular case, because we're going straight to bid and to time and money, the best way for us to mitigate that risk was to ensure that pre-qualification was met at the time of the bid.
In addition, if the bidders felt that this was an insignificant requirement, that it wasn't required at the time, whatever their opinion may be, they have sufficient time to raise that concern to the agency so that we could have considered it during the process and maybe make adjustments during the process that everyone could have the benefit of complying with. They also mentioned about bid shopping, or actually Odebrecht mentioned that this may be an opportunity for MCM to bid shop. It's possible, but that's basically an assumption. It's not anything that we can point out to or that the agency can opine on. The other thing that I do wanted to address also, because I do take it at heart when it comes to the small business, and coincidentally, this small business that we're referring to in this process happens to be someone that we work with and that has been around in our industry for a long time. We do believe in small business and providing opportunities for them, hence we have our policy, but not at the cost of our competitive, fair process. So those things go hand in hand. One thing does not replace the other. So unfortunately, this particular small business did not meet the requirements for this particular bid. But that does not mean that our policy, our intent, and what the agency stands for as it relates to small business is in any way, shape, or form minimized. Any other questions?
I'll wait until I hear from the rest of the board, and then I'll ask before you, if I may, Mr. Chair.
You're the chair, and I'm speaking without a microphone on, so I can imagine.
So I'll wait to see what others go to first.
Madam Chair? I have a couple of questions, Chairwoman, for Helen. Was there a pre-bid conference on this?
Yes.
And were the requirements of the solicitation document adequately explained to the teams?
Yes.
And pursued? What were the requirements?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you have the MCM letter in front of you.
I do.
On page 2, the last article, EII, on the bottom of the paragraph?
Yes.
Is that quote from the bid document itself? Is that taken out of context?
It is taken out of context.
Okay.
The ITV had two sections, two separate sections. The pre-qualification requirements, which listed a number of pre-qualification work classes that they needed to be pre-qualified for at the time that the bid was submitted. And then a separate section that listed those work classes that they needed to be pre-qualified for at the time the work is done. So what they're referencing here, it's part of that section where the work needs to be done at the time that the work is done. And those two sections were distinctly separated and clearly identified.
Any other questions?
That concludes my questions at that time.
Very good. Any other board member?
So I want to ask General Counsel, we've heard from a lot of attorneys here, particularly about some of his concerns and thoughts in reviewing all the materials being presented to us. I think you are our advisor,
yes,
and particularly from a legal perspective. What are the ramifications of our decisions? If we decide to go with one direction or the other direction, what can we anticipate from a legal challenge? And give us some perspective. I know we have several lawyers on the board. Give us some perspective, and in conjunction with, obviously, Helen's history, I think I, for one, there's two very strong, compelling arguments, and it's a difficult task for us as volunteers, but that's our job, right? To understand what is in our best interest of this organization. So one of the main factors is, what is it we could be facing with if we go one route That is to award this recommendation to MCM. The other route, if we award the recommendation to the recommended one. So any perspective that you can share for this board, I think, will be relevant in us reaching a decision.
Yeah, I think Helen's been very thorough in her analysis. She's brought me in and we discussed this. But I think the best interest of MDX today is to follow their procurement policy. That's what we do, and that's what we've done through the test of time since I've been here, and that's the reputation of this board. I can't see something more arbitrary. The reason we follow the procurement policy is because that's the standard that the court sets. The court will look at whether we followed our own policy to deem us arbitrary and capricious. When I look at qualification 9.1 and it says bid package shall not be considered from bidder that do not satisfy at a minimum the following pre-qualification requirements, and I know 2 pre-qualification requirements are not met, I think, and this is just my opinion, I am not the judge, he may deem that arbitrary and capricious. And even if I agreed with Mr. Halley and the 4 Manias and their staff, even if I agreed with everything they presented, I would still recommend to the board to follow the procurement process because we are allowed to be wrong, or we just cannot not follow our own solicitation documents and our procurement process. I think the procurement process has been followed here. I don't think that anything out of the ordinary. What we deemed a pre-qualification, we get great deference for, and whether they think it's not important, that's not what our head engineer wanted in the procurement package. So if what would happen, I mean, you want me to go further about what would happen? Well, I think that what would happen was if we get called, if there's a protest and we're sitting in front of in a courtroom, they're going to say, this is a pre-qualification. The question would be, show me on the date that they closed that you submitted ITS to small business, and obviously Helen's already addressed the roadway signage that she cured. So I would highly recommend against it.
Follow-up?
Helen, were you able to, yes, Madam Chair, were you able to verify that ION was pre-qualified? Qualified?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to hear also from, again, in our efforts to reach a solution to this, I'd like to hear from our Executive Director. Obviously, a lot of vast knowledge in this experience procurement, not just here at MDX, but at FDOT. And I'd like to tap into his wisdom and some perspective that he can share with this board.
Absolutely. I've been here 9 years now. And the only thing I can say, I've been here 9 years. And the only thing I can say is that I strive for consistency. And I've heard the arguments from everyone, and I agree this has never been personal. It will never be personal. And I'll put it on the record. Whether it's one contractor or Iggy back there who's been a friend forever, this is never personal. This is about following the rules. This is simple. The first question I asked when this came to me was it a mandatory pre-qualification? The answer was yes. Follow-up question, did it get mentioned in the pre-bid meeting? Yes, I heard it. There was ample opportunity for the contractors to dispute it, to question it. I know that they're complicated. These are complicated things, but anything worth winning is complicated. So I don't buy that excuse. Look, there are multiple contractors that have won contracts here at MDX over the years, many millions of dollars, okay? And they've been able to follow the rules. It is my strong advice to this board, and the board can do as it will, that you follow our recommendation, that we follow our criteria, we follow our process. The process was laid out. We followed it. If ION would have been included in the package at the day they submitted, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If MCO would have had its certification at the time it submitted, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Yes, schedule is important to us. When we see the dates as engineers, we want to validate that. That was a big deal for us. We presume everything else is fine. It is disappointing, extremely disappointing, that out of 7 contractors, and I don't care about the excuses, that it's too little or whatever, that out of 7 contractors that bid this, a $65.5 million contract, that 3 of them didn't get it right. Or that we have to throw 3 bids out because they can't get it right for a door opening. Or that we have other contractors that will say, I could do it my way, but not your way. You have to accept my terms, but not your terms. It's extremely disappointing. And yes, my New Year's resolution has always been the day that I see it all clean, I think I'll retire. Okay? So my recommendation, board members, is to follow our recommendation.
Madam Chair, follow-up question to our council. Or Helen, what is the definition of a minor irregularity, and is this a legal definition? You know, is this subjective? Is this gray? Is there case law? You know, that I think that's really the crux of what we're trying to attempt today. The allegation is that this is a minor irregularity, and it can be waived, and it should be waived. But what is that definition? And obviously, I'm assuming that that's a big part of it.
The problem isn't the definition of a minor irregularity or of substance. It's where it is in this procurement, in this solicitation package. That's really what it is. That's the crust of it. It's right there, underwritten, where it says that if you either comply with this, you submit this, or you're deemed non-responsive. That's really what it is. At this time, it's not something that we can just go in and say, you know, we deem this a minor irregularity. It's just that where it is in the procurement, it falls right under these things must be submitted, and if not, you're out. And they were already given one little thing because she found it with her magnifying glass, but the other things were not anywhere.
Madam Chair, and I appreciate that explanation. I guess to follow-up question, for legal, you know, I would assuming, Mr. Attorney, I'm assuming in your opinion you did some extensive case study, and you found examples, and obviously your recommendation was very firm. In other words, there wasn't. Well, what the board wanted to do was, your recommendation is that we follow procedures, and that's based on case study. I'm assuming that that's a question that I think I know the answer, but I want to put it on the record.
I think that a minor irregularity versus something, we don't want to give anybody a competitive edge. I think that the pre-qualifications was clear. I think that anything in the pre-qualifications would definitely qualify for a non-minor irregularity. If it's we're giving them a competitive edge. I heard what Mr. Moy recommended. However, that's not what we based ours on. It was not put into the proposal.
Last question, Madam Chair. In our history, and as an executive director and staff, you know, there were some questions about, improprieties or criminal activity. Have we ever, has that ever been material for us to even consider in a situation like that? I'm looking for precedents, right? I'm looking to follow what the recommendation of staff is. It is to follow a procedure. Have we ever done anything different? And you all, the collective knowledge, historical knowledge, any examples of that? Again, these are serious allegations and concerns that we should be publicly airing.
There's been no precedent that we would waive any of that. Okay? If they didn't fill out the form, they have to fill out the form. If they didn't sign a form, they need to sign a form. We determine the materiality of that, and we bring it before you.
Madam Chair, if I may, I do have a few questions, and a lot has been said by staff, board members, and the public, so I just want to get clarity on a few items. In the process, you had found a minor irregularity that you cured by deeming one of their subcontractors actually responsive, even though it wasn't listed or delineated within the proposal for roadway signage, correct?
Correct.
So, Ion Electrical, were they or were they not a part of their original submission?
They were not.
So that would mean that Ion was proposed
today,
after the submission date, regardless if they were for ITS or not.
Correct.
Okay. There was also comments mentioned about percentages, and I heard percentages in the 1%, and then I believe someone from the MCM team made a comment that it was accounted for 2.3% of the bid value. I heard different numbers. Considering MCM did not submit that ITS subcontract, would that then mean their overall price could increase by that 1 to 2 percentage points that were mentioned now that Ion Electric is included in their proposal?
They are claiming in their letter that their price was already included, so their price would not have been impacted by the inclusion of Ion. It's what they're saying in their letters.
Okay. And that clears it up really for me in terms of the Ion ITS issue. And really, I guess I don't need to go any further. Thank you.
Madam Chair, many questions have been answered. I just have a few to clarify. And I think Board Member Meyer answered the primary question I had, which was they are trying to replace one of their subcontractors on today's.
They're trying to include a new contract.
Include a new one. They're trying to include a new person that was not part of their original
Correct.
team. Okay. And not even listed. That's what I'm saying. Right. The issue, I do have this question. In many of our contracts, we find out about responsive or non-responsive situations before the packages are opened and their bids are presented. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. My question, why was the process in this particular RFP slightly different in that capacity? Because normally we deal with this before we even open them up and find out who won or who lost. And I've known that in other types of contracts. I am curious why this bid was different in the way it was opened or dealt with, because as both sides have indicated, we went to our general contractors to determine the timetable, even for those who we now are arguing were non-responsive. That's unusual from my experience.
It's not unusual for low bid procurements. It's unusual for MDX because we do a lot of design build, and when we pre-qualify the bidders because they have to put a full 30% set of plans ahead of time before they even submit a proposal to us. So there's more that goes into the proposal development and having and putting a team together and pre-qualifying the team that's going to put this set of plans together as part of the proposal for us. In that process, we do pre-qualify them ahead of time. In a low bid procurement, we don't know who the team is until they actually submit their bid, because they are getting bids until the very last minute. They're putting their packages together to the very last minute to get the best price possible to submit to the agency. So as we receive the bids and we open the bids and we see who was the bidder and that's when we actually do the compliance review and determine. Although in a design build also, when we pre-qualify them for the professional part of it in the first phase of the procurement, but when we open the bids in the second phase of the procurement for a design build project, which is what we're more accustomed to, we also go through a compliance review at that point too, because there may be things that change. There may be a new addition to the team at that point. So we do go through a compliance review after the prices are open at that point. Okay. Gratefully, we've never had to come to you at that point to tell you someone is unresponsive, but there is that possibility because there is a level of responsiveness that happens after the bid is open in those cases as well.
Okay. Has MCO ever been done business with, not MCM,
actually,
MCO. MCO, have they ever been used by other other contractors as a small business component to their bid that you are aware of? They are. As
a matter of fact, they are a continuous sub to one of our GEC contracts.
Okay. So my question then is, if they have been qualified to be a small business component to other contracts, why not in this contract?
I can't answer why they did not meet those requirements, or why did they miss that step, but they have bid before with the agency, yes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I have the non-responsive, I look at it as two parts. One is the fact that we have used MCO in the past, and they've been small business, and then the issue is of the pre-qualifying issue. I'm not sure if others feel, I don't know how others feel. That's my concern, because I think there's one issue with the fact that we've used MCO in the past. I think maybe that is an issue that I'm a little troubled with. The other one, though, is if you're trying to add someone to your bid, I don't know how you go around that. That is a potential competitive advantage. The other one I'm more troubled with, and that's why I'm trying to clarify and distinguish the two from each other.
It's simple. It's like a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
You know your players and you know who the lineup is. And all of a sudden, you have a game going on, but you really need someone to swing and hit that home run. So you decide that you're going to go out of your team and pick somebody else that was never introduced as a team player, okay? And you ask them to go in there and play. Will that be allowed after the game has begun? It's as simple as that. It would not be allowed. It's as simple as that. It's difficult. It's difficult, but it is what it is.
I agree.
You know, there's a deadline of submission, and that's when the clock starts ticking, and that's the beginning of everything. You can't realize something after the bat and then decide to submit. And you can't miss something of substantial competitive advantage and then decide, oh, I gotta go in and I gotta, you know, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, but it's written. And then when you go outside of your procurement and you go outside of what that bid package said, you're looking for problems. Yes, Member Cancio.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a comment. You know, I am not here in this committee, thank God, because, you know, we have Odebrecht and we have Munilla, both before they were my customers. Some in South America and here in Miami-Dade County in Florida. It's a hard decision because we had some issues before in the 836 57 to 17th Avenue. Now we have this 836 in 87 extension. And it's sad that we are in a back and forth. You know, that lady that was from this Vantage Enterprise, she was here. She had been working with the MCO, have been working before here in the MDX. To me, I am very glad that I am a person looking what's going on, and I don't going to decide who going in favor, who going against. Because both companies, they are very reputable, very nice company. That thing about Odebrecht that has some problem in Brazil, that is in South America, is not in the United States of America. MCM have been a company that I know, you know, for the last 25 years. They have been growing. They have been very good, and every day they are expanding. They are giving, you know, business to many small contractors. Mr. Halley came here second in the bidding process in favor of the other person. Helen, sometime, you know, let me tell you something. I don't know how you are able to sleep at night because sometimes you have a lot of pressure. But thank you to be able to express myself. Thank you.
Well, just so you know, when you're sitting here, you're not just sitting here as a person. You're sitting here as a board member, even though you're not sitting in the committee, just so we stand clear. So your statements are heard and land accordingly. Thank you. So, yes, Member Furry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, let me at the outset say that my position has always been to follow the advice of the staff because we count on their professionalism and their knowledge. And if they make a major mistake, then they shouldn't be staff anymore. And that's the solution to that problem. So as a board member, my position is very clear. But I do think, I ask for your forgiveness and your indulgence because maybe these questions have been answered, but I think they need to be a little bit further clarified. And I have 4 questions. My first question is to the attorney. And that is, there was 3 times mention of criminal activity with Odebrecht in Brazil and in other places. Does that in any way impact Odebrecht USA, this contract, and our ability to deal with Odebrecht as a Florida corporation, public corporation?
It has no effect on it.
It has no effect. Secondly, the issue of material and non-material is a critical is the critical issue, and that's been adequately discussed and answered. But I just, for my satisfaction and for the record, has there ever been an ITS issue of this nature that you declared in the past that was not material and that you waived or corrected somehow?
The question is directed to me, right?
Directed to the, yes, ma'am, Helen.
No, sir. It's either immaterial and it's a non-responsiveness issue, and if it's non-material, it's presented as a minor irregularity with a recommendation for waiver.
That wasn't the question. The question is, have you in the past ever waived an ITS issue, non-material issue question, and waived and corrected it in the bid that you remember?
Nothing that I can recall, sir, no. But I've been here for almost 20 years, so...
Well, fine. I'm just asking you on the record that question, Mr. Director. So now the third question that I have is Mr. Haley said that in the past, in issues like this, you have called the bidder and clarified the issue, and it was corrected.
And it goes back to if the issue would have been that they did not submit a form.
Sorry, what?
And it goes back to if the issue would have been that they did not submit a form, then maybe I would have called them and said, you need to submit this form. But not call them to say, you need to give me, to amend your proposal or your bid in order to become responsive. And that is the distinction between material and between non-material and a substantial non-compliance issue. I think the things that we have addressed in the past are those non-material issues where we can remedy them without giving someone a competitive advantage and without amending a proposal or a bid.
Yeah, the last question that I have is the statement of superfluous documentation and the issue of confusion because of what is done by FDOT and procedure, and that's why, and they cite that there were 3 other companies that did not comply, and that's proof of the pie that this is really superfluous and is not of major importance, and that's why people got confused. So the question then is, to the word superfluous documentation, you've stated it, but would you restate it? Is this issue a superfluous documentation issue?
No, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Questions from the board members? Would you like to state something?
Nothing more.
Nothing? All right, the question is called. All those in favor to accept the recommendation before us? Still one item, no?
You would have, there's 2 action items.
2? Okay, the first item, to deem 3 proposal non-responsive. The first item, is there a motion and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Would anybody like to be recorded as a no? Okay, it carries unanimously. Second item, to accept the winning
Endorsement for board approval of contract award to the lowest responsive and responsibility, which is Odebrecht.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion carries. Good. This concludes this item. Moving forward. Next item.
Item MDX procurement contract RFQ 16-02 General Engineering Consultant Service Work Program GECA. Endorsement of Technical Evaluation Committee recommendation.
Go ahead.
Explain.
Yeah. You want to know?
Explain.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was... the action item is requested. The requested action item is endorsement of recommendation for technical evaluation committee, which the committee would be held after this meeting. So a brief presentation of this item is we released a request for qualifications for general engineering consulting services for our GCA contract. We received one proposal only from HNTV Corporation, which is the incumbent. We did perform compliance review, and the proposal was responsive with no minor irregularities. Everything was in place. Although there's only one proposal received, we need to follow the established evaluation process in order to determine that they meet the minimum scoring in order to be qualified under this procurement process. That was the process laid out. It is important to note that even though that prior to the release of the RFQ, this committee went through a very extensive review of the solicitation documents and the process and recommended changes to the process, in fact, in order to solicit competition and to make sure that we made the process as accessible and easy for everyone to participate. Those changes were incorporated in the process, yet we still received one proposal. We discussed it internally. We review our solicitation documents. We review the process, and staff is standing here telling you that there's nothing that we could find in the process that would merit us making a different recommendation, but to move forward with the one proposal and to follow the process. So at this point, we would need to break the operations committee or adjourn the operations committee and convene the technical evaluation committee so that we can hear the oral presentations and score the proposal.
If I may, Ms. Chair.
Go ahead.
We received some correspondence from a potential other bidder. Do we need to deal with that before or after the technical evaluation council?
It's not a proposal. They're not part of this process. So
good enough.
That's
make sure
they're not proposers.
Okay. What did you say we needed to do?
Adjourn the operations committee.
Recommendation to accept the bid and open it up?
Well, we need to move forward to the technical evaluation committee in order to hold the oral presentations and evaluate the proposal, and then we will reconvene this committee with a recommendation from the technical evaluation committee.
Go right ahead. Let's go. We wanted to, what? We're going to do a motion. Before we go in and we sit, we're going to take a break.
Yes.
At least 2 minutes.
5.
Okay, 5, that's fine. 5 minutes, because I've gotten several requests. That's why I wasn't listening to you, but I'm paying attention now.
Thank you.
So is there a motion to accept?
Move.
Okay. And the item is open. Please explain why we don't want to review a letter sent to us, even though they're not a submitter.
What happened to the break?
Wait, I just wanted that
Okay.
so we can all go wonder, because, it's just, I don't get it.
At a proposal, so they don't have any standing in this process. They're basically outsiders providing an opinion about a process that they're not part of, and it may also be considered or perceived as this board is being, or this committee is being biased by their opinion, although they're not participating in the process.
Right, I understand that. But that wouldn't fall under the public comment? That wouldn't fall under somebody just wanting to comment something? I want to make sure that we're clear.
It is an item on the agenda, so if a member of the public would like to comment on the item on the agenda, yes, they could.
And
the item on the agenda is consideration of the proposal that's before us.
Okay.
There's somebody here. Are we? It sounds like there might be somebody here other than.
I heard him saying that there was a letter, and so
Right.
we're not going to hear it, and we're not going to discuss it. And I wanted to make sure how that was being framed, how that doesn't fall under a public comment. Okay, that's all.
I was going to suggest, if it's acceptable to the chair, that since I think all parties have, and I believe staff has sent out the letter to all of the members of the committee, that we could deal with it as a public comment that we have all seen, to acknowledge that we've read it, that it carries no more weight or no less weight than a public comment if a person had come and spoke before the board, if that's acceptable to the rest of the committee.
That's exactly what I was trying to get to.
That's what I thought
That was exactly what I was trying to get to.
That's where I thought you were going to.
Yeah.
We're there.
That was, okay. Okay, perfect. And with that, we're going to break.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can reconvene the operational committee.
Yes, please do.
Have a quorum still, Maria? Okay, great. I'm glad we still have a quorum. Helen, you want to introduce this item?
We talked about this all day. We just held the technical evaluation committee for the MDX procurement contract number RFQ 1602 for general engineering consulting services. The technical evaluation committee submitted a recommendation to the operations committee that the contract be awarded to HNTV as they score 958 points out of 100, and they exceeded the minimum final score required for award.
Second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Maria, let's move this to the board. Helen? That's it.
Thank you.
If there's any other announcements, Executive Director, next board meeting is January 26th at 4 p.m. I would like to announce our industry forum February 2nd for the I-95 A3611 procurement. Hopefully everyone will be there. We expect a big crowd. The documents are out there in draft form, so if you have any comments, opportunities for us to make it clearer, I'm sure we'll get some comments. That being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I have a series of questions I want to ask. I move to adjourn.
Okay, any second? Okay, I'll second that, and we'll call this meeting closed. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you, everyone, and congratulations, HNTB.